4, authorizing renewal of memorandum of agreement with Catholic Community Services West Washington for the provision of senior meal program from January 1, 2015 through December 31st, 2016.
Well, goodness, this will be a lot easier to go through this. This is just renewal of the Catholic Community Services of Western Washington. They provide a lunch program for the seniors 60 and over. It's donation only. They make lunch Tuesday through Friday, serve at noon. It's free of charge to us. They come in and use our facilities. They've been doing this for several years before I was there, and this is just the renewal contract that comes ahead every year.
That's just yearly.
Yes, this is yearly.
Any council discussion? Move forward?
Yep.
All right.
Thank you.
Next on our agenda, Resolution 2014-205, authorizing execution of an agreement with Light for Stewart Road street lighting system in the amount of $127,080.51.
Good evening, Council. I don't know that I'll be as short as the last agenda item, but certainly shorter than the previous, prior to that. The item before you tonight is related to the Stewart Road project, and this goes back to prior council actions related to decisions made back in the early phases of the project to select street lighting for this segment of roadway. And it's one of those critical elements that is a part of the project, and that P.C.S. and Enforecment, which is a subsidiary of P.C.S., this particular agreement would allow them to provide the equipment and install 17 poles and LED lighting for the road segment of the Stewart Road project. And the information in your packet tonight shows what the cost of that service would be to be provided to have those lights installed. And then so staff, with the city engineer recommending and staff recommending that this agreement go forward. There has been some conversation about as to the form and the content of the agreement, but the staff's opinion is that this was a decision to use Light under prior administrations and prior structures of the contract to not agree to this particular arrangement potentially would delay the project and bring additive cost to the project should we have to go back out, solicit advertisements for this particular lighting services. With that said, I'll stop at this point and just end by recommending that this particular agreement go forward for approval at the next business meeting of the council. But if there are questions, I'm here to answer them.
Council discussion? Move forward? All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda, approving right-of-way purchase offer to the property owner on Valentine Avenue for construction of improvements to the Valentine Avenue corridor.
Okay, I have a couple of general comments that will apply to both this agenda item and the following one. And so the general comments is that the agreement that the city entered into with the city of Sumner to take lead agency status allowed Sumner to take the lead for right-of-way negotiations and the acquisition of right-of-way property needed for this particular project. In doing so, and this is reflected in the agenda bill tonight, that through the negotiation process, which is proscribed by WSDOT, and it's a very laborious process that you have to go through, it was reviewed by Sumner's city attorney. The staff recommended at Sumner that these dollar values for the property that is on Valentine, and I think I will at this point, just so if this goes forward to the next week's agenda, you'll have a sense of where this is in relation to the process and the project. I'll take a moment to go around. But as the information is going around, I just want you to be familiar with it. The first page is already in your agenda packet tonight. The second page is what I want to speak to for a moment, just orient you a little bit on the ground where this particular property is. It's approximately 900, it's the northwest corner of the County Line Road. And I think you can see that represented by the red on the, I mixed up the packet. This is the southern portion that's closer to Stewart Road intersection, and it's north, approximately 900 feet northeast of the corner of intersection with Stewart Road. So the City of Sumner staff went through the process to negotiate this particular right-of-way acquisition. And in doing so, the owner wasn't satisfied with the valuation that was determined, and they requested a full appraisal, which they have the right to do under the process that WashDOT authorizes and allows. In doing so, the appraisal came up a little bit higher, and then in addition to that, the particular property owner is requesting that the administrative fees also be paid as well to go through the full appraisal process. Now, WashDOT, Washington State Department of Transportation, only allows up to $750 to go through that process that they would allow an applicant to petition that appeal. Now, I think you can appreciate that sometimes to get the expertise needed, that dollar value can be exceeded by a person who chooses to go through that process. So the city engineer and the project manager, as well as the city attorney for Sumner, reviewed this process, thought this was fair, equitable, and legal, and brought this proposal to the city staff here at Pacific. We reviewed their effort and agreed that we think this is a fair evaluation process and would allow the project to go forward and stay on track. That's a summary of this particular property and for this motion. Question?
Council question? Is it still within budget?
This will be added to the project cost, and it's a long way to go, but would show up as an additive at this point, but potentially would just be absorbed in the overall project.
Within the range of what we expected.
Yes.
So the way I'm reading this, he received the initial payment even though he didn't agree to the amount, and he was proven to be correct that it was worth more. He still thinks it's worth more than that, it sounds like, but is willing to settle for this amount.
That is correct.
Yeah. Further council discussion? Council pleasure?
Move forward.
Move forward. And another parcel, same issue.
Very much the same issue. I'll just toss around it again, and please refer to the page 2, which shows the property description. I think I handed out enough, but I'll get a couple more in this direction.
No, because it was. I thought 168, here, split last there.
There's more down here.
Yeah, I've got the new one, that is what you just got. And here's the new one. See what I can share.
All right, thanks.
Because that one's different.
On the front page of both of the two pieces of information I handed out there, so 167 to identify, and then 168.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I apologize if I may. I think I handed out too many of the...
Yeah, this is the 167.
There's more 158 right here.
Okay. I apologize, it has been a long day, so... Now, this particular property, just oriented, is approximately 900 feet of the northeast side on Valentine of the Stewart Road project. The prior one was at the northeast corner of the county line, which was 167. So my apologies if I got the two parcels mixed up in my explanation. But essentially, the story is the same, that the council-approved project manager and staff at Sumner followed the prescribed right-of-way acquisition process, have reviewed it, brought their recommendation forward to city staff here at Pacific, and we agreed that it was a fair and equitable process to make the valuation and determination. And in this instance, that the full appraisal was more based on the assessment of the county assessor's office, and that in order to have the review fee, excuse me,
Where did you say this was?
168.
See, this is the northwest corner of Valentine and County Line Road.
Excuse me, I apologize. I got too many pieces of paper going here. So you're correct, Councilmember Steiger, that this was the northeast corner of...
Northwest corner
No, I'm confused.
of Valentine and County Line Road. You know where that truck hit that power pole? and
Yes,
all
across
those
the
rocks?
street, okay,
Right,
gotcha,
just
thank
north
you.
of that,
I was thinking totally somewhere else,
yeah.
all right.
I mean, I see that, but I mean, I can't find it out.
Do you remember where that truck hit the power pole?
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, different section.
So again, I apologize. I got a couple pieces of information out there.
Pinch off a little piece.
So the northwest corner of the county line property and with, right at the county line and Valentine Road. So again, this was the prescribed process that was followed, and then it was through the assessor's office that the county valuation was more correct, that when they looked at it, it was a accurate and higher valuation than had been done earlier in the process. So it was determined to be fair and equitable, to make the adjustment, and then include the additional administrative fees to be able to come up with that $3,685 as the recommended adjustment.
Council discussion?
Has any money's been paid to this homeowner yet?
To my knowledge, no.
So this is the total amount then?
That is correct.
And for a 900 square foot property, is that what you said it was?
I didn't say, but that is
Approximately.
correct, yes, approximately.
Any council discussion?
Move forward.
Moving
Going forward?
These purchases have to be approved by council, council project.
Okay, then next on the agenda, resolution 2014-208, authorizing execution of contract with AHBL for engineering design services associated with Pierce County portion of the West Valley Highway Improvement Project.
Okay, council, on this one, in case I don't have extra paperwork to get confused or confuse you, I have Sean Comfort here to help me if I misspeak or don't explain this as clearly as I should. So with that said, the information and resolution before you tonight, we're recommending, staff recommends that this go forward to allow the Pierce County portion of West Valley Road go through the design phase, and the AHBL is the recommended vendor to do this. This is a similar contract to what you have seen earlier this summer for this same segment of work, but there was additional negotiations related to pricing and fee structure for the consultant, and then working to keep the overall project and consulting and design work within the budget that's been authorized for the federal funding. There was additional negotiations that went on with the wetlands firm selected to do the design work. and that because the scope has been renegotiated, it needs to go forward through you for formal approval, and we're recommending that it go forward to the next week's business meeting.
Council questions?
This is what I brought before in my report last week in the council meeting. This is the action here. Now, I believe that we have a figure there costing the city approximately $10,000 more. Is that still a firm figure? Is that?
Council member, I'm sorry, I think that's a different action that has yet to come forward to council yet.
Correct.
So of the 110,000 that's come in out of the funding that we received, or?
At this point, I'd like to ask Sean if he would like to step up and add anything to the funding.
It's looking like it's coming from the PSRC grant, or?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. The funding for this project is both a combination of grant funds as well as city match. And so this is a supplemental amount of funds that were available for the Pierce County section.
So let's say, I didn't see on here where it said the city match amount.
I'm not sure if that's...
$110,000 was paid from the PSC grant and city.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
I'm not sure where the dollar amount would show the split there, but with this federal funding, it's typically 13.5% is the local match, and then 85 is the federal contribution.
Okay. I just wanted
Whatever
to
that
be
dollar
clear.
amount
Thank
is.
you. Thank you.
Further council questions? Council's pleasure? All right.
Misinformed you, I got confused, but there is, city does have money in this one as well.
Thank you, council.
Next on the agenda, ordinance 2014-1879, repealing chapter 16.16 of the City Code and adopting a new chapter 16.16 for new procedures for review of all actions under CEPA. State Environmental Policy Act.
Council members, so this is very dry, might say, material to go through.
Like shoreline?
Yeah.
He says it's coming back too.
Yeah, but not to that extent of what we have here. But bottom line, what we have is, I'm taking a look at the city's CEPA regulations, and I've discussed them with the city attorney. To say the least, they're, might say, outdated, weak, and need to be revised. The need for this is pretty obvious to the attorney and myself, but the main problems that we run into is how we deal with CEPA and when CEPA review is completed relative to a project proposal. The current codes do not provide for an administrative appeal process within the CEPA regulations. Therefore, what we have is that for a project proposal that comes through, they can come through the comment period, but the actual appeal period for a CEPA would come at the time the underlying action, which is the project proposal, that would be related to a permit. It gets a notice of decision for the project, which is required under any state law. At that time, a CEPA appeal can be brought up relative to that project proposal. And what that means is that the expense for the developer, the expense in staff time is much greater than if we had an appeal process written into our regulations now, where the CEPA would be done and the appeal process would be done early in the process when plans have not been finalized, and they would, in that area, and in that respect, the CEPA process would be done early in the development proposal, and it'd be done and over with if there's no appeals related to a CEPA determination. So that's one of the things we really need to correct, to take it from the tail end for an appeal to the front end of a project, make it easier to make it so that we don't have expensive changes to project proposals at the tail end. And it makes it easier for everybody around because they know what the definitive timeline is for a CEPA determination in terms of the comment period and the appeal period, which we have a comment period but no appeal period, and that's caused confusion in the past with our acting CEPA folks with AHBL, and it's resulted in at least one CEPA just recently that had to be withdrawn because we didn't have the appeal period in our codes. So that's, you might say, is the major factor that we're coming back with these, with the changes to the SEPA regulations and getting rid of the existing code and coming up with a brand new code. The other main items that we're looking at, and it's just to keep them brief, is in terms of a SEPA determination or whether a project goes through SEPA review, there's what they call exemptions in the Washington Administrative Codes. And the state lists what is an exemption. And within those exemptions, if they're within a critical area within the city as defined, those exemptions are no longer exempt. It's kind of a weird logic, but those exemptions are no longer exempt, so they would still go through SEPA review. And we changed our exemptions clause a little bit to only include wetlands and habitat conservation areas versus all the critical areas, because we felt that the wetlands and the habitat conservation areas are the most critical of our critical areas, and there shouldn't be an exemption in those areas for the project proposal. The other main thing that we're looking at, a big change, is that in terms of environmental review, and then, like I say, that SEPA is the State Environmental Policy Act. That's a big acronym people throw around all the time, but we call it SEPA for short. One of the main tenets of the State Environmental Policy Act is that a SEPA determination, whether it's the determination of non-significance, a mitigated determination of non-significance, or determination of significance, is that if local regulations mitigate the impacts of the project proposal, you can put out what they call the determination of non-significance, which is a DNS. What we have done in our codes, in the revised code, is also reference a variety of different plans by reference. The water plan, the sewer plan, we're looking at parks plan, a variety of different plans that we can use as substantial SEPA policies, also in the review of a project proposal. So if current codes do not mitigate it, we can draw on those plans to draw mitigation conditions for those proposals. So that's the other big change that we're looking at as part of the change in our SEPA regulations. So in that respect, those are the main ones. All the rest is just putting together in a logical form what our process is, so it's easy for the public and for the developers and also for state agencies to determine what our processes are. So, and there's a lot of detail in it, and like I say, it's very dry reading. Did we pass out a copy of the ordinance tonight, Dean?
It's in the packet.
Yeah, it's in the packet. If you want to go to sleep tonight real quick, go ahead and start reading the ordinance. I guarantee you, unless you're really involved into those type of regulations, we'll put to sleep pretty quick. But in any event, this is just the first blush of this, and we'll be bringing it back at future council meetings. And in the case of this one, we do not have to go to Planning Commission for review first, because they are not development regulations. These are administrative regulations for the administering of our SEPA codes. Any questions?
Just when you say you limited the exceptions to just the wetlands
and habitat conservation areas, which are streams and creeks.
Okay, that was my question. Was it the stream itself or the stream and the designated buffer?
And the buffer. They're all put together.
Just double checking everything, not carving out two views.
No, we make sure we want to keep our protections for those areas. So.
Further council questions? Council's pleasure? All right.
Yes.
Yeah, are you planning on bringing it back at the next workshop?
It'll probably be at the next workshop if there's any questions. After that, we're checking with there's a funny new clause in the WACS, in the Washington Administrative Code, regarding SEPA, that we have to get a reading on from DOE. What it is that on the exempt levels that are listed, the city can raise certain exempt levels. We have raised our exempt levels in 2001 for a variety of different project types. with the repealing of the current ordinance and adoption of the new ordinance, we just need to get a reading on the state whether we have to send it to the new title or chapter 1616 for review with the tribes and other agencies. Because if you raise your exempt levels, if you're newly raising them, you have to provide them a 60-day comment period, and we need to get a read on that. This is one thing we have to look at.
Is Carol researching that, or you are? or-
I'll be talking with the state tomorrow. I'm just going to call them directly and get their reading on it.
Thank you.
So,
Okay, next item on the agenda then is Resolution 2014-210, setting the time and place for public hearings. Take public testimony on the city's final budget for 2015.
Mr. Chair, point of order.
Go ahead.
I would like to make a correction to the record that my labeling and best intentions to make the conversation clear, that please annotate in writing that Agenda Bill be labeled with 14167 is actually 168. And then 168 is 167. So I apologize for the confusion. It was mine, but the intent was to make it a clear conversation.
Can I get the one that I don't have?
Which one don't you have?
Here over here.
You know, the one that I don't have
Here's
is...
a
Oh, she doesn't have 168.
I will make sure you get the corrected version with the right number on it.
I think,
So change 167 to 168, 168 to 167. My apologies for the confusion.
Thanks, Marty.
Ready, budget? Okay.
Or here.
So, this is to discuss the resolution for the two budget hearings that we will do after the first revenue budget hearing. And that'll come in November and December, November 10th and then December 1st. The target goal is to pass the budget by December 8th, so this gives plenty of time for citizens to have comments or concerns to add it into the budget before we go to the final, as I say, prep. So it's basically just taking care of that so we have it noted and set up to go. Everybody knows what the expectations are.
Council questions? Move forward. Alrighty, final.
We don't actually have a change.
Yeah. Final item on the agenda for tonight, approval of the third quarter financial report.
Yes, and I noticed that in the packet, I thought there was a narrative, and I don't think you got the narrative, so I'm going to pass it around. The workshop, we'll have time to look at it more next week. It's really short.
Code enforcement, yeah, I know that, but he said final.
Back there. Okay, so I'm not sure how much you guys will look at the numbers. I gave you the cash flow and the summary, and the bottom line is the city cash position is doing really well. We've increased it by over $800,000, about $848,599. Some of that, however, is from the majority of it, about $500,000, is from the capital funds 308 and 310. One of them is a loan, Public Works Trust Fund loan we received $300,000 up front on. The other one is for some expenses we reimbursed from prior years. That was for the Stewart Thornton Avenue Road project. So that's about $500,000 of the increase, regardless of what it is. Now the $300,000 we have to track and use on the expenses, which will come. But right now the general fund is barely breaking even, which is good news because we have the biggest months of the year coming up for general fund revenue. So far this year it's looking strong, and we won't see interest earnings until the last week of the year. That's when the two investment items that I put in will come out with their biennial, amount. Should be somewhere in the $5,000 to $10,000 range, which would be great. So, I looked through to see if there's any problems I could find. The utilities looks like they're doing well. We have to put more stormwater funds into, infrastructure, into the capital fund, because it's pretty low, and it's gonna need that, so that's good that it's coming in well, because we'll make that transfer on the budget amendments at year end. And sewer is looking good now. I did find out that King County Metro is raising their rates again for next year, $2.23. We'll have to talk about that on Wednesday. Otherwise, are there any questions at this time? And if you haven't had a chance, but we can always talk about it next week too.
I have a question.
Sure.
Are we caught up now in our back billings to, our financial agencies?
I believe we are.
Stewart?
I believe we are, yes.
We had quite a
We have that
huge amount of
big
money there
backlog.
that was
Right.
not billed, and I mean, I'm afraid you double check that and none of
I
that
will.
went astray on us?
Sure, and that's where a lot of we actually, paid for a right-of-way, about $500,000 this year, and so that was when, Jim Morgan went and looked back at the expenses that were still owed us, reimbursement, and we got $757,000, so $250 of that was from prior years. But I'll double check to make sure that we are caught up in the Stewart fund.
I thought we had a figure of someplace around 500,000 and not even including the figure you just gave us.
Okay.
And I know that was very sloppily kept track of. I mean, it was, when I would ask questions, dig this box out and dig that box out from underneath the table or whatever. I mean, I'd say, where is this?
Yeah.
Well, it's in one of these boxes somewhere. I mean,
We're fortunate we didn't get written up for that, because we gotta keep track of it better. We have a stamp for it now, and we follow everything from A to Z on making sure that those grants are gonna be reimbursed properly.
I'm just afraid
So we lost something. Well, I'll look into them and just, hopefully we can find out we've got it all, or that we're getting it.
Further council questions? Council pleasure? Alrighty, we will move this forward to the agenda. And the final item on our agenda, we
Point of order, real quick. You did have one agenda item that was number 8 that you put to the end, Agenda Bill 1470.
Oh,
Missed a meeting,
action item, you're right, sorry. So we are now, Resolution 2014-209, authorizing execution of an agreement with P.C.S. County Planning and Land Services for permitting and inspection services.
Yes, and this is a agreement we really need to get signed because of the long-term absence of one of the city employees, our building inspector. And we're getting a backlog of number of building permits that need to be reviewed. And P.C.S. County has unequivocally stated that they need to have a signed agreement between us and the city so that they are covered liability-wise in their inspections, building inspections within the city. So it is critical to get a signed agreement approved by the council.
I imagine that'd be a big deal with us.
I know we need to have this agreement signed, but have we looked to see what the cost is going to versus the county and private firm to see which is less expensive to do our?
No, we haven't checked the cost, but invariably private firms are more expensive than municipalities because they have to charge, they're charging quite a bit more for their overhead and costs than.
Private.
Yes.
We have not researched.
No.
And tax.
Yeah.
And this is just temporary. I mean, we're hoping to have this good.
Well, yeah, but I mean,
Based on what we were being charged by the last private firm versus what we were being charged by P.C.S. County is cheaper. Yes, okay.
wanted to double check.
The only issue I have is if we bring Pierce County in, you know, their standards are going to be different than our standards, how does that apply to?
Well, actually, both the city and the county operate through the 2012 IGC International Building Codes. And we've also worked with them in determining what the fees are, and our fees are very similar in terms of the fees. So we're very confident they'll give us good service for building inspections.
This is an action item, do we need to report or?
This is for actual vote tonight.
Move
This
to
is the one item that made a special meeting instead of a workshop.
I move to approve agenda bill 14-171.
I'll second.
All right, you want to speak to your motion?
No, I mean, we need a code enforcement officer, but more importantly, we need a building inspector that can approve permits. And otherwise, our citizens that are trying to develop are going to get pretty frustrated with it.
Anything further?
We've used Pierce County in the past, and we've never had any repercussions, so I see no problem with it.
I want to amend my motion to state resolution number 2014-209.
Any further questions?
Do we need a second
Anything?
on my amendment?
I think that's just a scrivener.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, audience comment. Roll call of council, please.
Councilmember Cave?
Aye.
Councilmember Olivera?
Aye.
Councilmember Putnam?
Aye.
Councilmember Steiger?
Aye.
Councilmember Walker?
Aye.
Councilmember Herbertson?
Aye.
Motion carries.
There being no further business, we are adjourned.